Hello, my name's Gareth, and you have joined me for the posture portion of the meditation toolkit. So in this session we're going to consider why meditation posture is important, why it's important to have good posture when we're meditating, and then we'll look at the general principles involved in that, and then finally a few sort of particular ways in which you might set yourself up that you might find helpful. So why is it important to have good posture when we're meditating? Well, if we have good posture, then we can diminish, we can reduce more of the hindrances that usually get in the way of us becoming concentrated. We can almost do some of the work for ourselves before we've even closed our eyes or fixed our intention on meditating. We're really setting ourselves up for success, in one way of putting it. Just as if you were cooking, a good chef prepares all of their ingredients before they even turn on the oven or the gas ring. That's what we're doing when we're setting up our posture. We're setting all the ingredients up for us to have an enjoyable and productive session of meditation. So there are two principles involved in that. Firstly, we want to be as comfortable as we can, and that's removing the distracting influence of pain or discomfort as much as we can. So to that end, we want a nice stable base. There's the idea of having 4 points of contact with the ground is very helpful. So if you're in a chair, that means our buttocks and our feet. If you're on a meditation stool, as I'm doing, which I'll show you in a moment, then that means again the buttocks and the knees. So that reduces some of the tension in our body. It means that the weight is distributed, and no part of our back is having to strain to perhaps hold an uneven load or something like that. So we really want to be comfortable, but we don't want to be so comfortable that we start to fall asleep or become drowsy. And that brings us to the other principle, which is alertness. So we want to be sitting in a way that's conducive to being alert. So it might be very comfortable to say sit on the sofa where you normally watch television, but that posture is perhaps quite rounded. We're probably sort of set back quite a long way. We're more likely to feel sleepy like that. So if we can have our back supporting itself, having a sense of our spine supporting itself, the weight traveling down into the ground, and there's almost a sense of rising up without having to force anything. And so a really good posture when we're meditating has the balance of those two elements, relaxation and alertness. So there are a number of ways that we can achieve that balance, and I'm going to introduce you to 3 of them. There is the option of using a stool, as I'm doing. So the benefits of the stool are that we are quite close to the ground, so there's a sense of stability. Your knees are folded, so we're not trying to maintain a difficult, a more challenging lotus position type posture. So it's relatively accessible. And there is also something about it being a slightly different posture as well from our usual one. So there's a certain psychological or spiritual component in posture, in the considering posture, and some of that is the power of association. So sitting in a way that you associate with meditation means that when you come into that posture, already the mind's starting to concentrate. It knows what happens our body kind of knows what happens when it sits in a certain way. So the stool for me it has that effect. I don't sit in this on this outside of meditation very much, unless it's something else happening in the shrine room at the Buddhist Center. So there's real power of association there. Another way of getting into the kneeling posture is to use cushions, as I'm demonstrating here. and again that just helps us to get into that comfortable kneeling posture. And again, want the nice balance of pressure going through the legs, the knees, the feet, and also the buttocks. And we can just change the number of cushions to try and get a nice balance. So when we're kneeling, but this is true in really all postures, but yeah, particularly in the kneeling and lotus poses, if we're too high, then we'll tend to tip backwards, and if we're too low, if we don't have enough cushions, we'll tend to slump forwards. So where you have the most effortless balance between those two, that's the best for you. The other option, then the most accessible one, is to use a chair. So there we have our feet flat on the floor, buttocks grounded onto the chair. The back, if possible, is free of the back of the chair. It might be helpful to place something under the back feet of the chair just to lift ourselves up slightly. Tilting the seat of the chair downwards means that it's easier to sit upright for most people. And you can have something just in the small of your back just to support yourself if you need it. But yeah, again, it is helpful if possible, if our health allows it, to have the spine supporting itself to some degree. And then finally, there is the option of the cross-legged position, and this is perhaps the posture that we most commonly associate with meditation. When we picture, or perhaps if we were asked to draw what a meditator looks like, we draw someone with their legs crossed in what's referred to as full or half lotus position, depending on whether it's both legs crossed or just one on top of the other. And you can also put your leg in front as well as putting one leg on top. That might be easier on your knees or your hips. I don't choose to sit like this because I become uncomfortable. I lose circulation in my feet after perhaps 15 or 20 minutes. And yeah, it's a distraction from meditation. Yes, if you are going for it, it's good to have your knees on the ground as well as the buttocks in contact with the ground. If you need to put a block or a cushion under one knee, then that's helpful just to find that stability. But I'd say if your knees are having to come up off the ground too far in order to remain comfortable and to stay in this position, it's best to choose another one. The best meditation posture is the one that has the best balance of those two fundamental principles that we introduced at the beginning: relaxation, alertness. That's what we want, the combination of those two things. So so whatever posture allows you to find that balance most effectively is the best one for you. It's not that one posture is in itself better. It's not better to be in a half lotus pose but in real pain than it is to be on a chair but relaxed and upright. And that's very much the better option if those are the choices. So we have the benefit of stools and chairs with raised rear legs, and also a whole range of cushions. So there's a real wealth of tools and to be able to set ourselves up in the way that's most effective. At home, we obviously have to improvise unless you have invested in some of the kit. We will put links, I think, in the video description just to perhaps direct you to some places where you can get some good materials if you do want to invest. But as those principles are so simple in a way, you don't need any particular special materials. You can do it in a perfectly ordinary kitchen dining table, dining chair, a chair that you would have at your kitchen table, and with a couple of plank of wood under the back legs, or a couple of blocks, whatever you happen to have. Yeah, you don't need any special equipment in order to sit really well. It will take some experimentation to find what works best, and you may even notice that over time, it might be day to day, but it might also be longer term changes. If you're meditating for months or years, you may find that the posture that works best for you changes, and that's absolutely fine. One of the best sort of foundations for maintaining a meditation practice is having being alive to what's going on in our body in the present moment. That's a real strong element of meditation practice. So having that responsiveness, knowing when you need to change, knowing when it's best to just carry on with the setup that you found works for you, that's all part of the process. A few final pointers is it can be helpful to have a blanket. So I've just rolled a blanket and put it around my middle, and that's an option for providing some support for your hands. It might not seem so necessary if you're only meditating for a short period of time, but the weight of the arms is actually quite significant when we're not moving. And you may notice that they start to really sort of drag you down, and they tend to around the back as well. So that might be helpful. You can obviously rest them on the arms of your chair if you're using a chair, or just in your lap. But yeah, the blanket is another option. If you are kneeling and you're finding that you're getting discomfort in the backs of your feet, then you can roll a blanket up thinly and place that in the crook of your ankle, just to create a sort of protect that angle. Another way of doing it is to just have the backs of the feet extending over the back of your meditation mat if you're using one of those, or yeah, if you can create some slight raise for the ankle so that the feet can extend downwards, and that sort of makes that stretch a bit gentler. So having spoken about the principles and some of the practical ways of getting into good posture, just remains to talk about the internal aspect of that. So in finding this balance between grounding and lifting up, what we're looking for all the time is this real sense of lightness and relaxed upward sort of movement. So we're ideally not really using any effort to stay upright at all. And you may notice that as you become more absorbed in meditation, that feels easier, that our body just feels more relaxed. And also at times you may suddenly find that it just feels very natural to just sit more upright. Our posture just spontaneously improves for no apparent reason. And I think that's part of that is as we become absorbed and our body relaxes more and more profoundly, and the tension that we habitually hold kind of goes. We just begin to extend and expand physically as well as spiritually or mentally, or however you want to talk about that. So if we can hold some sense of very subtle internal movement in two directions, grounding down, rising up, there's almost it doesn't require any muscular effort. It's just our body sort of going moving or being aware almost of those two different directions and holding them in balance. And once the sort of general specifics of our posture is set up, it just becomes a question of tuning into those and that internal sense, as if we were stacking the parts of the spine, releasing the pelvis into the ground, softening the belly and the shoulders. Starting to have a sense of the spine supporting itself. And that classic image of the thread passing through the crown of our head and just very gently drawing us upwards. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope this has been helpful. Please explore the toolkit at your leisure. And if you are able to be generous towards the centre, you can find a link for that below, as well as links to the other resources that I mentioned about finding meditation equipment, as well as the general site address for the Buddhist Centre. So I've been Gareth, and I hope to see you another time. Please take care, and I will see you soon.